Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're skipping the pure philosophy and diving headfirst into the hard, honestly mind-blowing science of human agency. We're going to tackle one of the absolute biggest questions of our existence. Do we actually control our own destinies? Or is the whole concept of choice nothing more than a deeply convincing illusion? We'll be unpacking some incredible insights from a recent deep dive on this very topic, analyzing everything from subatomic particles right down to human neurology.
Let's break the fourth wall for a second. Think about right now. Did you consciously, independently choose to click and watch this explainer today? Or was your action entirely predestined, just the inevitable result of a massive chain of events set into motion at the very dawn of the universe? It's a slightly uncomfortable thought, isn't it? But to figure it out, we need to look at what the laws of physics actually have to say about it. So to give you a quick roadmap of where we're heading, we have to look at the two radically different scientific eras that define this debate. On one side, we've got classical mechanics. This is championed by Sir Isaac Newton, where the universe is completely predictable, governed strictly by cause and effect. But then, on the other side, we have the bizarre world of quantum mechanics, explored by scientists like Max Planck and Niels Bohr, where reality suddenly becomes probabilistic, entirely random, and deeply, deeply uncertain.
Now, before we jump into the math and the physics, we need to set our philosophical foundation with this incredible quote from Arthur Schopenhauer. This was famously a favorite of Albert Einstein himself. You can do what you will, but you cannot will what you will. What this basically means is, sure, you can choose to drink a cup of coffee right now because you want to, but you didn't choose to want the coffee in the first place, right? Your desires are handed to you. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the universe's domino effect. We are stepping into the incredibly rigid, clockwork universe designed by Sir Isaac Newton. In Newtonian physics, the universe is essentially the ultimate domino chain. The math tells us that if you know the exact initial conditions of a particle, things like its starting velocity and its acceleration, you can perfectly predict its future position. So if everything in existence is just particles interacting based on prior conditions, then every single action you take today is just a falling domino. It's directly caused by a previous event. Under this view, the future is already fully determined.
Which brings us to Section 2, Einstein's pre-written script.
If you thought Newton's universe was restrictive, well, just wait. Things get even more rigidly predetermined when we look at the actual fabric of space and time. Let's walk through this timeline to see how scientific thought escalated. We started with Newton, who believed time was absolute, meaning it ticks away at the exact same rate for everyone everywhere. Then Planck discovered that energy moves in discrete little packets, which opened the door to the quantum realm. Then came Einstein, who completely shattered Newton's absolute time with the concept of a block universe, which eventually led to mind-bending quantum proofs like Bell's inequality in the 1980s. To really understand Einstein's block theory, our source brings up this brilliant analogy about a train. Imagine a person standing on a platform and another person riding on a really fast-moving train. Now, if lightning strikes two places at once, the person on the platform sees them happen simultaneously, but the person moving on the train, they actually see one strike before the other. This proves that now is entirely relative, and if your now is different from my now, it implies that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously on a massive fabric of time. In short, and I know it's totally mind-bending, the entire script of your life might already be written and just sitting out there on that timeline, just waiting for you to experience it.
Now, what's really interesting here is Section 3, quantum randomness versus choice.
This brings us to the microscopic quantum world, which completely shatters that predictable, pre-written script we were just talking about. Quantum mechanics introduced something called spooky action at a distance. This is when two entangled particles share information instantly across the vastness of the universe, literally breaking the speed of light. Einstein hated this. It drove him absolutely crazy. He argued that there must be hidden variables, some underlying predictable math that we just couldn't see yet. But in the 1980s, an experiment proving Bell's inequality showed that Einstein was actually wrong. There were no hidden variables. At a fundamental level, true randomness really does exist in our universe. Let's break down just how strange this quantum twist really is. Thomas Young's famous double-slit experiment showed that a single electron can actually pass through two slits at the exact same time, acting as a wave of sheer probability. But here's the kicker. The moment a scientist actually observes or measures that electron, it forces that wave function to collapse into a single, defined position. Think about that for a second. The observer effect proves that at a subatomic level, things are purely probabilistic until they interact with the world. So here's the crucial point. Does this quantum randomness mean we actually have free will? Well, no. As our source points out, randomness does not equal true free will. Imagine the universe hands you a random set of options, say the letters A through Z.
You might randomly pick one, but you didn't invent the alphabet, right? You didn't create those options yourself. Simply being subject to random chance is definitely not the same as being the conscious author of your destiny.
Let's move on and see how this builds in Section 4, Discovering Free Won't.
Let's funnel down from the vast, abstract physics of the universe directly into the biological wiring of the human brain to see how this translates into something highly tangible. Back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran this iconic experiment. He asked people to look at a clock and press a button whenever they felt the urge, noting the exact time they made that conscious choice. Well, the brain mapping revealed something completely shocking. The unconscious brain actually generated a signal to move a full 500 milliseconds before the action. But the person only became consciously aware of their choice 200 milliseconds before acting. Basically, your unconscious mind decides what you're going to do before you even know you've made a choice.
And this brilliantly illustrates a major scientific twist. Because while that initial urge is entirely unconscious and totally out of your control, your conscious mind does wake up about 200 milliseconds before the physical action actually takes place. Libet realized that in this tiny split-second window, your conscious mind possesses the incredible power to veto or stop the action entirely. So we might not have free will to generate our desires, but science shows we absolutely have free won't.
And that takes us to Section 5, Choosing Not to Act. So, how does a 200 millisecond delay in the brain matter in real life? Well, the source material takes this profound neuroscientific concept of free won't and applies it directly to the complex, often volatile landscape of human society and collective action. To illustrate this, the source uses a highly practical analogy of a police officer managing a crowd during a protest. The officer might receive a strict order from their superiors to control the crowd. That's the external stimulus, a predetermined condition they can't control. However, the source notes that the officer exercises free won't in deciding exactly how hard they strike with their baton. They have the neurological veto power to lessen the impact, to consciously restrain themselves in that final fraction of a second.
The source applies this heavily to some powerful real-world parallels, passionately arguing against the utility of violence while expressing deep empathy for student protests. They highlight Mahatma Gandhi, noting that his defining strength was his active, continuous choice to exercise nonviolence, which is essentially the ultimate execution of free won't. The source also impartially references the revolutionary Bhagat Singh, who fundamentally agreed that bullets alone cannot bring true revolution. Across the board, the central message from the source is that choosing not to engage in violence is our greatest neurological superpower.
To wrap things up, the source leaves us with this incredibly powerful translated Hindi poem. If you watch a burning house in silence, the next turn is yours. It's a pretty chilling reminder. Science tells us that while the urges of the universe and our own unconscious brains might be completely out of our control, our capacity to say no, to pause, to intervene, to veto an action is very, very real. So the ultimate question for you is, now that you know you possess the power of free won't, how will you choose to use it in the real world?